resources for community archivists. As you can tell, this is now being recorded. It's great. So my name is Renee Rapp. I'm one of the members of the programming committee of the Archives Roundtable. And thank you all for coming. So before we get started, I wanted to mention a couple of upcoming events. On March 5th, we have the Carnegie Hall Rose Archive. It is sold out, but I encourage you to join the waiting list. On March 13th, we have another webinar, the World Music Archives Wesleyan University. That's open to all, and there is no limit, so please feel free to sign up. And then finally, on March 16th, we have the exhibition tour of border crossings at the New York Public Library. That's again open to all, and it's free. So I encourage you all to look at our events and sign up for them. They're really wonderful, and we work really hard on creating those events for our members. So I'll go ahead and introduce our speakers. Unfortunately, Kelly Hicks couldn't join us tonight, but we do have Marie Lascu. She's the lead archivist of Crowing Rooster Arts, a nonprofit media producer and digital archivist for the Ballet Tech, a public dance school in New York City. She has been a core member of the Community Archiving Workshop since 2014. She's also been a member of the New York City-based volunteer group XFR, collective since 2015. She specializes in audiovisual presentation with an interest in community organizations and individuals seeking practical solutions for unprocessed and underprocessed AV collections. And we also have Sandra Yates. She's the head archivist. She's the head of McGovern Historical Center, Texas Medical Center Library, where she manages the preservation and access of the library's special collections, including rare books, audiovisual materials, photographs, digital collections, digital archives, and web development. And she's been a member of CAW organizing committee since 2011. She's been the online resource consultant for the CAW grants projects as well. And before I go on, I just want to give a couple of housekeeping notes. Please note that this event is being recorded. And if you wish to turn off your cameras, please do so now. And we ask that everyone silence their microphones for the duration of tonight's talk. Please include any questions and comments in the chat box. We will have time at the end to answer those questions after the session. And you'll also find a link later on to the Community Archiving Workshop's website, as well as some other art-related events. And let me just give you a really quick readout of what this session is about, just in case you missed it on our website. So tonight's webinar provides an introduction to the concept of community-centered archiving and goes over the work of the Community Archiving Workshops Collective and free resources the group provides. This webinar will be followed by questions and answers and discussions in which participants are encouraged to share ideas about how they use or would like to use a community-centered archival approach to archival work. So take it away, Sandra and Marie. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on a Friday evening, unless you might be in a different time zone. But we're happy to be connecting as CAW members with the ART community in a more official capacity, although I know I'm recognizing some names. I'm sure we've met each other at conferences, done projects, or we're a web. So thanks again for joining. Sandra, can you go to the next slide? We just want to quickly go over what our talk will entail. Nothing super complex. We're just going to do a history and overview of the Community Archiving Workshop, which is both a group and a workshop model, recent and upcoming projects we're involved in, resources for community-centered projects, again, mostly that we are involved in or have connected with. And then we hope to have a good chunk of time for some discussion. So we're open to ideas if you have further questions about things, etc. So next slide. Community Archiving Workshop is both the name of an all-volunteer group and the name of a flagship workshop model that we organize. So I think it's important to always reiterate that community archiving is a broad term. It's not invented by this group or owned by this group. And Community Archiving Workshop in this instance started out as the name of an event at a specific annual workshop. And this is simply our version of a community archiving event. So again, what started out as a type of event organized around an annual conference has organically grown over the last decade into a core group of volunteers and a tested and trusted event model that has garnered the core group generous supplementary funding and other types of resources and donations. So we're currently a group of about 8 core members and have numerous satellite members. We actually just had 8 additional people join, expressing different levels of interest. So it's constantly in flux. So we're not a nonprofit. We are a collective and a project of the Association of Moving Image Archivists, or AMIA. We operate under a flat collaborative management structure, often sharing tasks and changing our roles on different projects in order to help new members learn, or even old members learn different skills. So we like our working model to hopefully reflect the values of community that we talk about in our workshops, which is why we have chosen to adopt a more collective structure. And currently, our core members are mostly US based. And again, that's not mandatory. It's just the organic nature of where we formed, how we formed, where we get our funding, et cetera. Next slide. A little more about our history. Our first workshop was started in 2010 in tandem with, again, the Association of Moving Image Archivists annual conference, which was in Philadelphia. The idea was that during this conference, there was a great concentration of AV archivists in that specific location, and that a wealth of knowledge could be used to help a local organization jumpstart preservation efforts for their AV collection. So the workshop turned into an annual part of the AMIA conference, officially becoming a pre-conference workshop in 2011 and continues to be today. The AMIA conference workshop was and is completely volunteer run. And since then, the demand for the workshop has grown, and some of our workshops are now supported by federal grant funds. Next slide. Again, our flagship workshop model is a one-day workshop with a focus on the inventory and assessment of a time-based media collection. Archivists and community members, sometimes with no previous experience, and usually specifically with AV, are typically all invited to attend. A normal day starts with an audiovisual basics presentation, which teaches format identification, assessment, and care. The partner organization is also present. So they also present on their collection and history. So we like to ground everyone with context and have shared knowledge on what we're going to do moving forward. And this typically takes around 2 hours, and a typical workshop is between 6 to 8 hours. I would say average 6, if that's more realistic. After the training portion, we split into small groups to apply what we've learned and assess and inventory the collection. There's obviously more detail here, but we're not going to get into the specifics, but it is documented on our website, and you can ask us more specific questions later. An important part of the workshop day is lunch. This is where everyone shares a meal together. As we've been able to get funding and be in larger spaces, we try to ensure that lunch happens within reason, away from the archival collections, but we like to keep people together so they keep chatting and networking, because it is largely about fostering relationships and discovering new ways to collaborate and support each other, especially those who are local, because we generally have to move on. So the workshop model is flexible. Over the years, we've added and subtracted elements as needed to serve the partners we collaborate with. We have included presentations on disaster mitigation and recovery, caring for digital collections, and even unusual or rare formats, again, depending on the collection partner's needs and, keeping in mind time and the need to instruct people at the beginning of the workshop. So each Again, each workshop is tailored to the needs of the partner organization within reason. And in this way, we frequently pull from a variety of expertise and specialties of various members of the CAW group to develop the modules for the day. So baseline workshop, an outcome of a typical day, again, between 6 to 8 hours, if you can get between 25 to 30 people in a room. We have a really solid average of getting 120 to 200 individual items inventoried. And this is a big deal. This has been an entire collection for some people. And new skills are being learned by various people. And the partner organization is ideally left with a foundation that they can build on. One of the most important intangible outcomes are the relationships formed, which frequently lead to the development of collaborative projects and further skills and resource sharing. Next slide. And so CAW the group typically focuses on working with historically underserved or underrepresented collections or organizations. What does this mean? We do work with large institutions as well as with small organizations and DIY archiving projects or groups. We recognize that large institutions cannot do everything and that all projects benefit from collaboration and sharing of resources. So that means that large institutions benefit from working with collectors, artists, small organizations who have a depth of cultural knowledge rarely possible within most large organizations, and small organizations can benefit from the structural support that large institutions can sometimes offer. We advocate for projects in which the people closest to the media, such as the people represented in the media or who made the media, are also caring for it or have a strong voice in how it will be cared for. Next slide. And just to briefly define what we consider underserved collections, we loosely describe that as any collection that may have been overlooked by an institution or organization or society in general, anything that's been left out of the historical narrative or not self-represented. It's still incredibly common for the audiovisual elements of an organization or collection to be left out of planning and daily activities because of the additional expertise and resources needed to care for these materials properly. And we also work with communities that are not typically represented in institutions. Next slide. We just wanted to show, it's just an image, but a great example, a fairly recent example for us of a unique moment. This is a picture of a colleague from the Gold Belt Heritage Foundation, an organization in Alaska, preserving Native language and cultural traditions. So during our day-long workshop, which was held in Kodiak, Alaska in May 2023, they were just working as a collection partner and participant, and in the process of inventorying, they found a recording of their grandmother. Which is, again, this inventorying is just the primary activity of the workshop. But if anyone else had been inventorying that item, this would not have come to light, at least not anytime soon. So this kind of personal collection, which again, no one else in the room that day would have been aware of, is pretty invaluable and irreplaceable. Next slide. And as I stated earlier, CAW started as a group of volunteers in 2010. And I should say, just for time, we didn't get into it, but the actual workshop model was started by Mona Jimenez, who has a long history of audiovisual preservation and was also in video art. But she spearheaded this workshop. She first did it with students in the Moving Image Archiving and Preservation program, and I believe called it Activist Archiving Workshop. And that might have been in 2008. 2010 is when she wanted to bring it to EMEA, but I first encountered it as a student in that program. And that, I guess that's another way of saying how there's like all this overlap in this web. But so we started out as all volunteers doing this workshop in 2010, and some of us joining at various times. And flash forward to 2018, we received our first federal grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services to support the development of workshops in geographically diverse and isolated parts of the US. We just wanted to, we love doing the workshop as part of EMEA, but wanted to see if we could take it out of there without just volunteering our time. And again, it's all about trying to do it a little more intentionally. And so that project helped us develop a training of trainers model to train people on how to organize the workshop. And this is a 3-day process, which has a workshop, like a day-long workshop in the middle of that training. And then in 2019, we received funding from the National Endowment for the Humanities to support workshops with tribally held collections across the US in collaboration with the Association of Tribal Archives, Libraries, and Museums, or ATALM. And because of this funding and support, we're able to develop longer relationships with our partner organizations, support stronger regional networks, and have more continuity in our projects. We've been able to leave workshop collection partners with a preservation plan for their audiovisual media to help them move forward after the workshop day with just a little more guidance. And in some cases, partners have received preservation funds to support digitization or other preservation efforts related to their audiovisual media. So this has radically expanded the impact of our workshops, and it means that CAW has grown both as a workshop model and a group. Next slide. So this growth is welcome, but it happened organically and quickly. CAW went from a group of friends and volunteers organizing one annual workshop to managing multiple complex projects throughout the US and even a few abroad. In 2022, the CAW core members decided that the growth should be a little more intentional moving forward, and that we needed to develop stronger internal structures and directives, and to even explore the idea of one day becoming an independent organization, although not just yet. And with funding from the Mellon Foundation, we completed a year-long strategic planning project. We were able to hire a strategic planning consultant, one who was used to working with non-traditional organizations. That was really key for us. And also a conflict management specialist, and just really helped us to begin to organize and lay a really solid foundation for ourselves to move forward. So our goal is not only to develop a clear vision for CAW as a group, but also a sustainable path forward, and also to develop a collective working model that may help other organizations who wish to incorporate a more collective and democratic working environment. Next slide. And as I've mentioned, most of our funding as a project of EMEA is through federal grants and only supports US-based workshops. But we have been expanding our international presence. And just last year, we held a 4-day workshop in Sačekar, Serbia, in collaboration with the Mid-Atlantic Regional Moving Image Archive, that's MARMIA, and they are based in Baltimore. And the organization we partnered with is Skver, who is based in Sačekar, Serbia. This was a volunteer project for all organizers involved, though some funding for travel was provided through small grants with the US Embassy in Serbia, the Serbian Ministry of Culture, and by a t-shirt fundraiser run by Marmia. And in September 2023, we also held our first workshop at the International Association of Sound and Audiovisual Archives EASA annual conference in Istanbul, Turkey. And Ka partnered with the Istanbul University Ethnomusicology Department and the Z1 Film Archive. Over 40 people came, which is a really good chunk, and anything over that is a little too much for this workshop, honestly. And over 10 countries were represented in terms of participants who came, and that included people from Ghana, China, Georgia, and of course, Turkey. And the US. This was also a volunteer-led CAW with some support for travel provided by EASA. And we are planning on continuing our work with Square. We're in the process of planning another 4-day workshop this upcoming August. And EASA said they are interested in having us back to do a workshop. So we are hoping that will be possible. In years past, various members have done workshops in Manila, Philippines, Tokyo, Japan, and Mexico City, Mexico. And I know I'm missing some, but we know that we have colleagues and potential partners worldwide interested in sharing ideas and resources that are doing similar things, and in some cases are requiring assistance with AV preservation strategies and just advocacy. And we want to meet them where they are. Sandra, over to you.
Oh my goodness, Marie. Great job. So, needless to say, we've been busy the last few years. In December 2023, we completed an exciting project with partnership with WILS, which is formerly Wisconsin Library Services. And this was to expand audiovisual resources within their digital readiness toolkit. The toolkit is an online complete guide to creating and tending to digital collections, and was originally developed by WILS through funding from the NHPRC. The images on this slide are from our working retreat in Salem, Massachusetts last year. Our work, as you probably noticed, is mostly virtual, like we are here today. So in-person collaboration is a rare treat, but is always fun and productive, as you can see. We currently are applying for a second NHPRC grant to expand on this project. And it would support the work for 4 workshop partners that we've had, and to pilot a digital preservation readiness projects. It will utilize the readiness tools that we've expanded, adding more audiovisual components. So here's the digital readiness toolkit. It's published as an interactive ebook by WILS, Recollection Wisconsin, and the Wisconsin Historical Society. We link to it from our website as well. CAW members developed the audiovisual digital readiness self-assessment. It provides tools and resources that help organizations plan and prioritize digital access to their AV assets. So speaking of our website and resources, we have it all at communityarchiving.org, and they are all free and being improved constantly by a group of us. Over the past decade, and through the support of funds, CAW has developed many of these resources. Yes, we have gotten funding, but it's largely a volunteer effort on our part. So we have training resources that facilitate anyone to organize a workshop. So we have our main one is the handbook. It was our first project. I was just thinking about that today. It was very nostalgic. The handbook is a step-by-step guide for organizing a community archiving workshop in your community. It takes you from forming a planning team to delivering inventory workshops to your partner organization. As Marie mentioned, the training of trainer workshops and curriculum, we received the IMLS grant way back when. It's our first grant, I think, to develop the workshops and kind of take people through the process. And at the end of it, they will have a community archiving workshop and like plan it together. And from that, we've created the taught curriculum. It contains everything from lesson plans, training notes, presentations, speaker notes that you can cultivate on your own. And we've completed the taught curriculum about the last 2 years at the EMEA work conference, where there were virtual webinars leading up to the workshop at the conference. And the complete curriculum and handbook are on our website and printable, I think, in one large document. Other things that we've created as part of our grant-funded projects, we have been able to create some webinars and develop AV-specific kits. We have 9 webinars up on the website, from AV basics and inventorying your collection to disaster preparedness and how to use this film inspection kit that we made. In the guides, we have set up documentation, how to set up the different kits, and webinars showing you how to set up the kits and what the components are within them. We have film inspection kits, audio digitization, video digitization, as well as these cute little training kits with all the supplies you need to inventory a collection at a workshop. Complete equipment and supply lists for the kits are available on our website, along with the how-to videos. One of our more favorite resources is our Loteria audiovisual. It's a take off the Mexican game, La Loteria. We collaborated with Laboratorio Experimental de Cine in Mexico to develop an illustrated guide to common audiovisual archiving terms in Spanish. We have a total of 54 images. As we develop more international workshops, the language barrier is one of the challenges that we've started to address. You know, in AV and generally in archives, the technical terms and jargons are difficult in every language, each using different words to describe the same format, equipment, or work that they're doing. And La Loteria is a way to address the challenge where you have the image and then we can put the terms related to that in whatever language that we want. So we have English, we have Spanish, we have Serbian. We're trying to translate into multiple languages, and Turkish is coming soon. And we're hoping to get files to where we can actually interchange the different languages and have communities print them out as they need them. We have the tablas, the Spanish version tablas. There's 9 tablas in total, so you can cut them up and play your game. And the available glossaries and all the translations that we have available right now are on our website. As Marie had mentioned, our mission and strategic planning, we're really taking a focused effort on growing our organization and making it sustainable through time. So in the past year that we set out to create a strategic plan, basically. So I'm showing a little snippet from our strategic plan to where we're really walking through the process and making very deliberate decisions towards what we're going to do in the future and how we're going to operate. And at the end of the day, our biggest resource is us, everyone contributing to the call missions, both model and group. Through our strategic planning work, we formalized to a point what it means to be involved in call. And then we've created a job description, defined the different membership roles in the group, and have an interest form for anybody that wants to submit their interest to get involved. We have welcomed more members this past year, and we're working on streamlining the process to welcome more people into the process, into the call way. So here are our connections. You can reach us on our website and our email, and we have our general social media accounts. So I'll leave that up for a little bit longer and we can start our question and answer segment.
Thank you so much, Sandra and Marie. That was fantastic. I'm a huge fan of CAW. I saw a presentation at an SAA a couple years ago, and I immediately fell in love. And I was just so excited to get you all here with art. This is my like dream come true for a while. And for very selfish reasons. I don't know much about audio, visual, or reels. I've learned a bit here and there. And so I've just always wanted to attend one of these events. So I'm going to kind of monitor some questions in the chat, but before I get started on those and let people kind of mull over some questions, I have a couple of questions. I think it was Marie who mentioned a collection in Alaska where a young woman found a recording of her grandmother. That's just really beautiful. But I wanted to know if you both had like a favorite collection or like another like beautiful aha moment that you wanted to share with us.
Oof. That's like asking what your favorite movie is.
Or like something that just comes up to your mind. It doesn't have to be your favorite. I hate the favorite questions, but that was a great story.
Yeah.
One that comes to mind is Hawaii. We that workshop we did barefoot.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was amazing.
That's so funny. It was my first internship and I had to like set up like a little art gallery kind of, and I didn't know how to do it. And I was really nervous. And my mentor told me you should take your shoes off. It helps you think. And so I wonder if that's what they thought about in Hawaii. Just like it helps you think. It helps free your mind. You got to free your feet, you know?
It's
That's so
definitely
funny.
about being grounded, and then the community space we were in specifically had what is the fake grass called? I can't the
Oh, like,
AstroTurf.
yeah.
yeah, it was very soft, but so it was the space is designed around like you must take your shoes off. So and it was great because everyone who attended was comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just really fun. And also it's there we've had a lot of good food, but the like Hawaii food was
Mm. And now I'm jealous. How do I become a member so I can also travel and see these great collections?
well, Sandra, believe you can answer that question
Yeah, yeah.
if people are
Yes.
interested.
So on our website, on the home page down at the bottom, there is how to get involved, and you can learn more. And there's 4 steps. You review our call up for membership. Basically, we describe what it means to work in the group call. You review the membership roles and decide which roles you want to take on or can take on. There's also time commitments, kind of average time commitments that we kind of tag on to different roles, and then submit the interest form, which kind of, tells us what kind of skills you have, that kind of, why do you want to be a part of CAW, and just kind of your background and give us an idea of where to go from there. And then we invite you to our general meeting, which is the first Wednesday of every month.
Yes,
At,
our next one is March 6th at 12 p.m. Eastern. So as Sandra said, we have these steps now, and having steps is part of our strategic planning process. Again, this is like an organically formed group. And the way we found out about this is we had this annual conference to go to, and that's still an option, I should say. In giving our presentation, it's like there's all these things we didn't mention, but I think an important one, the Association of Moving Image Archivists, that's like a niche within a niche. So maybe some of you have heard of that or gone to a conference. But we are trying to make that its own thing, so that now there is officially a working group there, that if you're a member, it's different committees and working groups you can join, but the workshops themselves are open. And there will be a workshop there, because there's people very committed to making sure that happens. We're definitely going to be doing another workshop this year at the Association of Tribal Archives, Libraries, and Museums, and their annual conference is in Palm Springs this year, if that's your thing. It's a great conference though. Everyone goes where the facilities can stay in the conference, right? But we are also trying to post on our website upcoming cause, because I know if you're just trying to dip your toe in, like you're not here to hear about like admin work or jump on like a grant project, but that was a long way of saying, like, if you just want to like kind of get a better sense of what the group is about, the general monthlies are there for just like anyone to drop in on. We do little hellos and you can ask questions about projects. So feel free to join March 6th or a different month. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great timing. You can go to our Carnegie Hall archive tour, and then the next day go to a CAW open meeting. I love that.
Yeah. Your whole
We
week.
do have a couple of questions in the chat, and please feel free to ask more questions. One question is, do you address issues of ownership and copyright, especially with projects outside of the US? This person's been trying to establish an XRF collective style entry in Vancouver, but the funding is often contingent that they own the material, which can be complicated with community archives. So they wanted to hear your feedback on that.
Well, with community archiving workshop, we're not the ones responsible for the copyright issues. I mean, obviously in our personal lives and as a member of Transfer Collective, copyright comes up with things Transfer Collective as digitized, but there's usually an understanding between who we're digitizing for, and it's like who we're digitizing for is responsible for the copyright. And me personally, as a archiving professional, I'm definitely of the, like, I came out of training that was like open access, like all the time, no matter what. And over the years, especially, and starting to work with more tribal organizations over the years, it's like, there's like really good reasons to not immediately make things openly accessible, but we don't control that in the work we do. We're working with people's collections, but we're not taking on their collections. But we do get asked copyright stuff a lot. And, again, with our more recent partners, their concerns are we have gotten things from people and we're not sure what the copyright is. And it's usually us giving advice about like if the issue is not being able to contact people specifically. I think the most due diligence you can do is to, if you are going to share it publicly, have some kind of statement about that. Otherwise, you only share it internally. I don't know if that really answers your question. In terms of getting funding, again, because we're not digitizing or putting stuff online, that hasn't been an issue for us.
Yeah, I think that answered the question really well. There is another question. Are the kits readily available to digitize Betamax or U-matic?
No, they could be. So the kits that we have, the first round of us making them was to make them for partners, which that was a fun learning experience about like, no, you cannot just give someone a kit. And this happened, I will claim like this happened during the pandemic. And so but it was a good learning experience, both as a longtime COM member and transfer collective member, where it's like people need to like sit in a room and touch things and be walked through things. So the kits that we have now made for ourselves, it's really just for demo purposes, and we've tried to keep it simple. So it's one setup for VHS digitization, so you can argue it can do one analog tape, it can do another, but like we don't have scopes. We have a time-based corrector. It's called the Pixie FS, and it's like hit or miss, that one. So, you know, I wouldn't say it's ready to go for those things, but then more importantly, you need the specific deck for the specific format. So the short answer would have been no.
That helps me get a
It's
sense of like what are in the, no, it definitely does. It helps us get a
Yeah.
sense of what's in the kits. Cause I think when you hear workshop, and I've gone to several workshops and they're really hands-on, and I think people, and I've had this feeling too, where like I go into workshops thinking, oh, this is like real experience. It's not like, it's like real time experience and we're using real artifacts, but usually it's just things that, there was one workshop I went to, it was like a disaster emergency kind of thing. They had like kiddie pools and they just had like random AV material that they just found in like thrift stores that they knew weren't unique. So it was like, I think that's something to kind of keep in mind, that these, like you said, they're demo kits. They're kind of really focused on, I think from what I get, please correct me if I'm wrong, they're really for analyzing and inventorying the collection, kind of getting you comfortable handling that AV material. Cause I know that I get really scared around reels. Those really they freak me out. They're so scary.
Yeah, I mean, they're not even that hands-on, and this is a time issue, right? So 6 to 8 hours sounds like a lot of time. That gets
Yeah.
up quickly with 2 hours of orientation instruction, leaving time for breaks, having lunch. That's why the focus, and again, this is adaptable to non-AV, and we've done workshops with non-AV, and it's awesome, but it was hard to organize that workshop. And the main reason is making sure to have at least one expert, you know, to overview like teaching, handling, and doing assessments. But it's really just the time that it takes to orient people at the beginning. And that's why like Mona Jimenez, again, who created this specific model, like always stresses to like do the one thing. Like, I know you want to do more and you want to show people how to inspect film and you want to show them how to digitize this, that, and the other thing, but you will run out of time and no one will have learned anything. Like, they will have just gotten like bits of information. And we honestly haven't seamlessly integrated the demo of kits into our workshops. It's just really hard. You think people will be bored by inventorying, but they get really into it, especially because of the social component of partnering with each other. And like, it's not like everyone's quiet. Like, people are talking to each other and it's like, look what I found, or like, what do you think this says? And some people, you have to make them go to lunch because, as you know, for those of you who have to inventory anything, it's like once you get into your groove, like, and people get into that headspace during this workshop and they don't want to go eat because they're like, but I really want to finish this box, you know? So you don't want to break that up by, now I'm going to like teach you what a time-based corrector does, which definitely takes more than a few minutes. So we are ourselves figuring out, a way to incorporate those into the workshop. We haven't found a seamless way. We had the original intention to make these kits and have them like we had hubs storing them, and then they were supposed to be sent out to partners, and people were uncomfortable doing that. So these kits were kind of sitting there, and we realized there has to be a different way. And I know that I don't know if some people are familiar with Indigitization, a project in Canada. I think it's indigitization.ca. I should know this. It's an amazing project, but they do kits for communities and have had a lot of success, but it is because they have like a 2-week
Oh my
training.
God.
And also they have been able to ensure that the partners they are leaving it with, that there's at least one person who's like really, they have done really well and leaving kits with people who are very proactive and like wanted to keep using the kit, became comfortable with it. Because it's really about getting comfortable with stuff, and you can't make people comfortable in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
At least I don't have that skill set.
Comfortable around you. I think you do. We do have another question in the chat. This one's a really fun question. It might be challenging, but has CAW helped create new community-based archives, or does it focus on existing collections exclusively?
That is a good question. I'm not aware of one that we have started, but we have worked with people who are super, there has to be like the one person with that fire who's like, I'm gonna make this work. I just need some information and like a little bit of training. So we know that things have moved forward because of work we've done with them, but at least me personally, I don't feel like it's like because of that person, because we like we're able to give them like a little boost, and a lot of times it's like utilizing our professional credentials. It's like hiring a consultant just to say what everyone has been saying, but like they needed the outside person to just like, yes, that's totally, that I feel like that has happened with the Serbian group Skver. That was something that's a very recent thing that I've been a part of, where those were two people who found slides in a factory, were kind of, scanned them, made a website, reached out to their friend who worked with a friend in archives, and roped us in. And because we started talking to them and I think cheerleading them, within a year of us beginning to talk about maybe doing something and getting to there, they had like legally made their organization legal in their country, found a space, like, and so that's very exciting. But I don't feel like because of me they did that. I feel like because of us they did it a little faster, just because they felt empowered. That's the closest thing I can think of, but they were getting collection items for their community before we showed up. And yeah, I don't know if Sandra, you can think of anything specific.
We usually start with a corpus of items, assets that we just help people get control over so they can move on and create their archive.
Yeah, as I mentioned, it's like, so we focus on audiovisual items because we are trained audiovisual archivists. A professor in an AV program started this. It started at an AV association annual conference. It's not because you cannot do this with other items, but I still think after 10 years, AV is the most neglected because it's just like, can get pretty wild. You can go down a rabbit hole, and so it gets left out still. And so I think there's no shortage of organizations at varying levels where it's like, we're doing all this stuff, but like there's these boxes in this closet and I feel really bad about it. And usually our last few tribal organizations that we've worked with, like we've gotten through a chunk of the AV. It's just like time, you know, a lot of it is time. And people not having time to just learn basic inventorying, which I do not think requires a degree. But that's
That warms my heart. We do have another question. I apologize for jumping in and out. I had a little coughing fit.
Okay.
But thank
I
you
was
both
like, are you
for covering for me.
okay?
We do have another question. There's someone who is up in the Pacific Northwest and they want to know what opportunities there would be to participate in something that's they consider themselves out of network. That was very poorly worded. Let me just read that out loud. Sorry, that cough really got to me. I'm also up here in the Pacific Northwest. What opportunities to participate might there be for those of us outside the network?
Yeah, Sandra, do you wanna?
I think we have more people in the Northwest.
Oh, Pacific
we don't have
Northwest, not our
anything.
Northwest.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
No. I'm in the Southwest, Southeast. So, but we are with the new NEH grant having more and more workshops, up to 5, but tribal, and yeah, actually, Marie, you're more on the pulse.
Well, I really, it's hard because with the grant funded projects, and we really just have one right now, like last year was crazy and we had 4, but part of us trying to figure out our structure is like, we can't just like drop people into a project that's already started, but with the 8 additional people that just joined, some of them have already volunteered to just be workshop team members. That's what we're calling. So it's like now that we have been forced to structure ourselves, there's 2 team leaders who are responsible for organizing workshops and dealing with all the logistics. And then there's 3 team members who just like need to like show up and help. And ideally have done a call before, but I think, you know, depending on like the type of person you are, this could go either way. And it's like, that's how a lot of us joined this group. We just kept going to these workshops and eventually we're like, can I be a part of the meetings where you start talking to a partner and like walking through like what needs to go in the volunteer packet, etc. So there aren't a bunch of these coming up. I would say again, come to the monthly meeting. We are trying to do a newsletter. It's not going to come out that often, so don't be scared to sign up. But we're trying to figure out a way where once things are in advance, just having a date and a location that we could say this is happening. So you don't have to worry about organizing or whatever, just showing up to experience one. And if you keep an eye out for the AMIA conference, the Association of Moving Image Archivists, and I think that's amianet.org. Correct me if I'm wrong. I always get that wrong. That is a good entry point just because the working group is really trying to maintain making the training of trainers a part of it. And then we're like, you know, have been trying to figure out, because that was designed to be like 3 days. You can't ask people to take 3 extra days for a conference. So we're trying to work out doing that. It's been doing 4 webinars leading up. They're like 4 90-minute webinars, and it seemed to work out. We've done it 2 years in a row now, and it seems to be okay. But this is again, I'm rambling on. Step 1, come to a monthly meeting.
So, before, oh, sorry, I thought
yeah.
you were done.
No, I am
And
done.
and also one of our core members of Shim Nomai is in Seattle, and he's been wanting to get into the regional archivist conference there. I
Yeah,
don't think we were accepted this year,
we were not.
which is surprising because we're accepted everywhere.
I can list a few large organizations that have not accepted us.
Well, I'm happy that you were able to come to our humble, small organization. Really quite pleased with that. I'm going to ask just two more questions before we wrap up. We have one in the comments. I'm just going to read the first part of it. It's quite long. But does the training cover electronic records or born digital materials?
Oh, let me handle that. Training, well, the workshop, we have dealt with born digital collections like DVD collections
Mhm.
and actual like thumb drives with audio files from a tribe in Southern California. We inventory the files individually. Well, I don't not we inventory all the files just like we do a VHS. Although we have the added tool of like command line file listing that, you basically just, get the file list and then we put it in the inventory along with the VHS and stuff like that.
Yeah,
That
but that was like Sandra was like, it was kind of like an additional component where she was her own station. We haven't figured out a process where you could involve the whole workshop. That is a dream of mine, if but it's like when you start, it's like the domino of like, could we like clone the collection onto like a series of hard drives that everyone could use? It's like if we had more money, sure, but it's like, on and on and on. But the digital component in general is something we have more requests from our partners. With the incoming NEH grant, one of the additions was creating a digital file management module that we would do post workshop, but this is still a webinar, which, it's like, I'm sure that'll be fine, but wanting to create a digital focused version of the workshop is definitely a dream of a few of us. And we need funding for that time, but the digital readiness toolkit that Sandra talked about with Will's, that is really great for, well, not for the question that you're asking, but we are trying to get a second grant where we can keep working with that. And there's a lot of resources in that if we could figure out a good way to incorporate them into workshops, because more and more people are coming to us with like, we have, these are hard drives that are 10 years old. And it's like, oh no.
Yeah, I
I
work in
don't
one
know
of
if
those
that answers
institutions.
your event question though. I'm trying to see. Yeah, if you want to talk, I would be so interested in talking to you about that more, as I feel like I don't think that helped you what I just said.
Well, that's actually a great segue to my final question. And we're a little over time, so I apologize for those who are sticking around, but thank you so much. But is there, so you mentioned a newsletter and you had your Facebook and Instagram. Is there like a listserv or somewhere else that people can quickly get updates or know how to join besides the website? Or maybe it's just the website. I did not do the due diligence of research. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. Definitely the website, signing up for the interest form, because then we can add you. We have like a general Google group,
Okay, great.
really high tech stuff that we're using everyone. But that's the quickest way that if you are interested in joining that Google group, that's the way you'll get, and it will mostly be like reminders for the monthly meeting, or if a new workshop is happening. That is the quickest way. And our most active social media account is our Instagram, and I use active, like, broadly.
I get that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for coming. Those of you who are still with us, we do have the link to their website, communityarchiving.org. Thank you, Sandra, Marie. This was wonderful. And thank you to Art and the other members of our programming committee for letting me take this on and invite everyone here. So I'm just gonna call it a night, and thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you, everyone. Have a really good weekend.